Friday, June 6th, it is lunchtime on the left coast and hopefully quitting time early on the East Coast on this Friday here. And the sports world never fails to disappoint us. And we're still trying to figure out what the hell is going on right now. Absolutely crazy time right now. So much going on. And as always, every good shooter has plenty of good shooters on the wings to kick it to. Vegas Mac, what is up, my brother?
Working on my summer jumper, man. I got it going. Let me tell you, these are not the dog days. I don't know what these are. These are the fun days.
Yeah, you know, it was a real rough night for the people that said the NBA Finals was going to suck. And again, all these people that still care about TV ratings. You're not the billionaires that make money off the TV ratings. Why do you care? And if that was your reasoning for not watching game one of the NBA Finals last night, man, did you miss a ridiculous, unbelievable. You know, I tried before we got here in our summer series, and we'll get into more details on that. Feel free to comment if you're watching along with us. Follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show, everywhere but Snapchat, because we're not 12 and Snapchat sucks. But last night, game one of the NBA Finals, if that was a precursor, and we said this after game one of the Stanley Cup Final, if that's a precursor to how the series is going to go, oh my goodness, what? And I thought you drew the short straw last night. You had to encapsulate what you saw very quickly. And I thought you did a great job with it as we pumped that out last night across all of our channels, just to instantly react to what the hell we saw. And one thing that I've seen already that I want to put the absolute brakes on right away, Mac, is the people out here saying, Oklahoma City choked last night. And I thought Brian Windhorst with Scott Van Pelt after the game and the post-game coverage on ESPN said it perfectly. Oklahoma City didn't choke last night. They just got walked down. And the more you know from our preview video that I put out, the Pacers, their numbers in the second half against the spread, their numbers in general, man, that was... I'm having a hard time putting it together, and you'll remember this. Game one of the Celtics-Warriors series. The Warriors were up huge the whole time. You know, it looked like the Warriors had it in cruise control, and then what the hell happened? That game last night was way better than that, and I brought that one up because I was trying to put it in context, like, and I know there's been other ones, so don't jump at me in the comments. If you can think of one, feel free to add it to the comments, but that was one of the better game ones I've ever seen in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, and, you know, it was one of those, you know, through about 3.5 quarters, you were kind of like, you know, it was a good game, but Oklahoma City, you know, pretty much had that game in hand. I mean, even with 6 minutes to go, up 10 points, and it just seemed like Indiana couldn't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, they did figure it out. Something happened. So we have to try to figure out, like, what was that thing that happened? Where did Oklahoma City go wrong, or where did Indiana go right? Did Indiana figure something out? I've got a couple of thoughts about this, but that's what we're going to kind of look at here in the next couple of minutes. Like, who made the bigger adjustment? Was there an adjustment that was made, or what happened in those last 6 minutes?
Yeah, and you can't say enough. And obviously the attention, and rightfully so, goes to Tyrese Halliburton, who's made a habit of just winning games for the Pacers in this postseason at the end of games. But Andrew Nembhard's shot was huge. I thought Nembhard played great. You saw Nembhard in the clinching game against the Knicks was all over Brunson. He was in his shorts, if you will, the whole time. And I thought the way that they attacked Shea last night with Nembhard was right. But you can go back to so many moments. I mean, the bank shot from Miles Turner on the three. Aaron Nesmith's rebound to get that possession started. And I mentioned it in the preview, and I think this is something that still doesn't get the credit it deserves. I think in the NBA more than any other sport, in the postseason, coaching matters. And I am not throwing any shade on Mark Dagnall. We have talked about the Thunder all season long. I can go back to last year in some of the videos we were doing on just how well set up this Thunder team is for the future. The series isn't over. That was only game one, and I expect the Thunder to be locked in and ready to go for game two on Sunday. But you saw Indiana just stay committed to what they do. Their identity doesn't change. They go deep. They go deeper than any other team does. And I thought the experience of Rick Carlisle really showed there at the end of the game.
So, I mean, I'm not going to hit some of the key stats that people have kind of brought up, but I think there are three things. I want to bring up three things. Rebounds. I didn't realize until the end of the game the discrepancy in the rebounds. Indiana out-rebounded Oklahoma City 56-39. That's a pretty big margin. Mm-hmm. What that tells me is a couple of things. Oklahoma City didn't shoot great, but they weren't getting a whole lot of second opportunities to make it to get any of those secondhand shots. That's the first thing. So I always look at rebounding because rebounding is important to me. That was the first thing. The second thing, and again, listen, I'm not an NBA coach. I don't pretend to be one, but here's all I'm going to say. I took a look at Oklahoma City in the fourth quarter. They went on a stretch. Williams scored to make it 98-88, up 10. That was at the 7:32 mark of the fourth quarter. They did not have another actually, that was at the 7:32 mark. I was going to say, the next 10 minutes, Mike, the next 6 minutes of the game, the last 6 minutes, they only had 10 points. Mm-hmm. They had a stretch there of about 2.5, 3 minutes where they didn't score. And I know in the NBA, they don't like to call a lot of timeouts, especially when your team's not scoring. You kind of let them to go. But at the end of the game, they were missing a lot of shots. They did not have an offensive rhythm. And you could start to feel it went from 98-88. And then, again, you're talking about, only 10 points that last 6 minutes. You've got to have your team a little bit more offensively fluid at that point, and they really weren't. SGA scored their last 8 of their last 10 points, which brings me to my third point. When I look at the scoring, and again, I haven't watched Oklahoma City a lot, so I'm going to play that out, but SGA had 38 points. Who was their second leading scorer?
Had to be my guy, Lou Dort.
No, it was Williams with 17.
Yep.
That's a huge discrepancy. Mm-hmm. Now I'm going to read Indiana's for you. Okay. You had 19, 17, 15, 14, 13, 14, 9. What does that tell you? They have more than one guy that can score. And I think from my analysis of this first game is this. Indiana's depth. When you have one guy that you're counting on to score all your points, Indiana basically shut down the rest of Oklahoma City. The rest of Oklahoma City really didn't do too much. That was my concern. And again, I'm going to preface it by saying I haven't watched Oklahoma City play a lot. But when you have a team that has 6 guys in double digits, and McConnell had 9, so almost 7 guys in double digits. That's, even though defensively, all those turnovers and whatnot, you didn't get anything from those turnovers. Indiana, so much more balance. That's a tough team to play against.
Yeah, absolutely. And I took a lot of shrapnel on our social channels as we were getting ready for this finals, and people were talking about this, that, and the other thing. And this was going to be a sweep, maybe 5. And listen, it could still be 5. I mean, Oklahoma City can do the backdoor sweep here. It's entirely possible. I don't think there's a chance in hell that it happens. And when we get to our best bets here, I'll tell you exactly why I think that's not going to happen. But, in all of the holy shit, what did we watch last night? You mentioned the scoring for the Pacers. Well, I ended up going 5 for 6 on the stuff we put out on the channel. Almost swept the board there. And I'm not doing this to pat myself on the back, because the other side of it is if I ever put down all the bets that I have in a game, we would need longer than our minute videos on our shorts and all of our channels to do just that. The Pacers scoring last night, I needed 20, 15, and 12 out of 3 specific guys, and that would have been Pascal Siakam, Tyrese Halliburton, and Aaron Nesmith. I ended up at 19, 14, and 10 with the Pacers money line. About the worst beat I've ever had in my damn life. The irony is I was, as the game was unfolding, the betting side of my brain went, I need overtime here because there's no way these 3 guys are all going to score one more bucket because the math wasn't mathing.
Right.
You know, and I think the other thing here that, and you brought it up when you did your recap last night, the turnovers, the 25 turnovers out of the Pacers only amounted to 4 converted points off of turnovers for Oklahoma City. Theoretically, that game should have been a boat race and looked like it had the potential of being a boat race. But the spread in the second half going into the game before they even tipped off last night was Indiana plus 4.5 in the second half. They outscored the Thunder 66-53. I'm telling you, one of the better spots in this entire series, whether you do it live or you do it ahead of time, is the Pacers on the second half spread. It's not going to win you every night. Oklahoma City, and we've seen this from them the entire season. We've seen this from them in the postseason. It is very likely that one time in this series, if we follow the suit of both of these teams, and ironically, it might be game 3, that seems to be the Achilles heel for the Pacers, Oklahoma City is going to blow them out in one game. It's just what they do. And Indiana last night, 46% from 3, 47% from the floor, 71% from the free throw line. They had the shooting night that we're used to with them. But
I honestly don't think, Mike. As you say, I don't think Indiana played that good of a game. And I look
definitely
at those,
not in the first half.
No, but I mean, and I just look at it. You take whatever it was, 24, 25 turnovers. And I always say, if they cut that in half, which they probably will, and then you take even half of that. So you're talking about 7 possessions. If they just scored on 7 of those possessions, that's 14 points. This is a close game kind of throughout. In fact, Indiana probably has the lead. I mean, I was really impressed. I was more impressed with Indiana in this game than I was with Oklahoma City overall. And again, it's probably only about the 3rd or 4th time that I've seen Oklahoma City play, but I was really impressed with the way Indiana just handled everything. They didn't get rattled at any point. Did I see this Indiana team get rattled? And I think you mentioned this. I think it goes to Rick Carlisle, the experience that he has as a head coach, being able to maneuver and do the things that he needed to do. He kept that team in this game.
Yeah, I think this is a hell of a precursor, this series, leading into what is expected to be the wildest NBA offseason of all time. And it's not going to be because the free agent signings are crazy. It's going to be the trade market in this upcoming offseason, because these are 2 teams that are a tremendous blueprint for anybody going forward. Now, in the NBA, we know the challenge is apron this, apron that. You got to make money match. I mean, some of these things that I'm seeing, I saw one yesterday, and I'm almost 1,000% convinced it's from a bullshit site, but that the Warriors were going to swing a trade with the Pistons, and it makes sense for everybody, where the Pistons would get Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, and Gary Payton II, and the Warriors would then return Cade Cunningham, who would be the bridge to the now with Steph Curry and going forward. And I'm like, if you think in your right goddamn mind for 1 second that the Pistons, after the year they had, are going to trade the motorcade, you're crazy. And right. Everybody likes to play pseudo GM as we go into these scenarios, and the trade machine that they put out on some of these websites and everything. Like, Giannis is the chip that we will remain to see where he falls, and then everything will follow suit. Obviously, the team closest to me out here in the Suns have made it no point or haven't hesitated to make it a point that they don't want Bradley Beal back. Well, the problem is nobody wants Bradley Beal with that contract. what happens with Kevin Durant? Does he go to Minnesota? Right. Does he go to the Knicks? You know, people floating out, oh, Durant and Cat, it's a perfect trade. No, it's not. Like, Karl Anthony Towns, I'm trying to say this the right way. Karl Anthony Towns can't spell the word defense. Like, he's not a valuable trade commodity to anybody. And I think the blueprint to get back to this finals series that these two teams have put out, depth, guys that know their roles, guys that are very comfortable in their roles, teams that are together. I mean, Oklahoma City rips Isaiah Hartenstein out of the starting lineup last night about a half hour before the game starts for Case and Wallace, which, and I think Richard Jefferson was the one that brought it up at the beginning of the game last night on the coverage. That for Indiana to see that, you're already thinking, hey, they're struggling to see how they're going to adjust to us. I thought that was an interesting move that probably doesn't get talked about either. Very quickly here, as we go ahead to Sunday in game number 2, the Pacers 11-point dogs in game number 2. The series price has been cut in half now. Indiana's like a plus 380, if I remember correctly from the last time I saw before we jumped on here. What are your thoughts going into game 2 of this series for Sunday?
Well, I mean, my thing is I look at those last 6 minutes, and it just seems like Indiana found something that worked. And I mean, they just looked really, really fluid. I don't think Halliburton or do I think that Nesmith had a really, really good game. I mean, if I had to grade out Indiana for this game, I mean, I'm giving them like a C+ as a grade for this game. I don't really think they played all that well. I think they have a lot of room for improvement. I thought Oklahoma City, even though I haven't seen them, I thought they were the better team. I'm not so sure right now. I like Indiana. I'm going to switch my pick right away. I mean, I almost like Indiana to win this series. I really think Indiana's a better team. I think what I saw from Oklahoma City in this game was a struggle offensively against an Indiana team that was kind of still for 3 quarters trying to figure things out. And Oklahoma City, through that whole thing, couldn't put them away. If you can't put away a team that was trying to figure themselves out, what are you going to do when they kind of do figure it out?
Yeah, exactly. You know, feel free to share your comments. Does it change your thought? And one place I will pat myself on the back is, you know, a lot of people are like, now they want to jump on Indiana's bandwagon and all that. I've been telling you this the entire postseason. I ended the Bucks in a video that we did way before that series was done. I told you they were going to beat the Cavs. I picked them to beat the Knicks. I also picked them to win this series too. And I love this Oklahoma City team, and they're going to be good for a long time. But when I look at this going forward, I mentioned the role players in our game 1 preview video, and the biggest thing, I think there's 2 things in this series. Number 1, Indiana, if you don't believe it by now, can guard Oklahoma City. Number 2, the guard play overall in this series, the Jalen Williams, the Aaron Nesmith, very underrated defenders, both of them. And the role players. You've got Toppin, you've got McConnell, and you've got Mathurin on Indy's side. On the Oklahoma City side, you've got the combo of Hartenstein and Wallace. You've got Isaiah Joe. You've got Alex Caruso. You know, I think the series is won amongst those guys. And you saw it last night. Obi Toppin in the first half, they couldn't keep him on the court. I mean, turnover into the backcourt. Rush shot at the end of the shot clock. That's not always on him. But then he comes in and settles in and just is fantastic for them down the stretch. I think Obi Toppin is a very tricky matchup for Oklahoma City. Again, 11 points is the number going into game 2 on Sunday. And I think, again, and let me get this out before we change gears here too. So we went into this series with people bitching and whining and complaining that there was no super teams, and I want to see super teams in the finals and blah, 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 blah. People, again, this fascination with NBA fans caring about the TV ratings, I have no idea where the hell that came from. The other thing, too, last night and just going through our Twitter feed and everything, it's like every other tweet was, well, there's no aura to the aura is the most overused idiotic word in all of sports right now. Put the logo back on the court. There's no logos on the jerseys. First of all, they are on the jerseys. They're back here, right under the back of the neck where they've been for several years now. Who cares what's on the court, man? You're missing the objective here. And these are the two best teams and have been the two best teams in basketball for the last 3 months. Who cares if the logo is on the damn court or on the score bug? Like,
I know.
Aura, logo, and score bugs were three of the most prominent things talked about until Tyrese Halliburton pulled a Tyrese Halliburton again last night. It's just, good God, what do you complain all the time that there's these horrible matchups and nobody is watching, and then they give you this on a silver platter, and that's what you want to complain about.
Yeah, Mike, I agree. And my last thought on this is, Indiana last year when they got swept by Boston, I don't know if many people remember, but those were 4 tough games that Boston had. None of those were easy. This is, excuse me, this is a Pacers team that was their starting point. And we always wonder where those starting points are for these teams. That was their starting point to get where they were through this whole playoffs this year, was what happened to them against Boston last year. And yeah, they didn't have a great regular season. There were some injuries and stuff, but listen, this Indiana team, even though they don't have the finals experience, this is a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, and we one of the things we talk about more often than not when it comes to the NBA on this show is you got to have the step up year before you're ready to finish it off. And one of my favorite videos that we've ever done on this show, we had some friends in town last year. They got an Airbnb. We were hanging out over there at the pool and everything. And you could barely see me because there was no lights in this damn backyard. Beautiful house, no lights in the backyard by the pool. And we shared the group text between the three of us. TJ will be back with us next Wednesday. And we shared the group text, and that night was the night that you just wrote off the Celtics that night. You're like, I'm going to bed. This game's done. And TJ and I were watching the game, and we were like, should we tell him? Should we wake him up? And I just decided to go live and show the video. And again, yeah, I think that's a great point that you bring up is that step up year last year and the battle experience for this Pacers team that is basically entirely the same as they were last year with Benedict Mathurin back in the fold. And you see it. So I can't wait for Sunday game 2. We've got some quarterback news in the NFL trying to sneak their way like they always do into the sports scene at this time of the year. Aaron Rodgers is now a member of Vegas Max, Pittsburgh Steelers, and a lot of people with a lot of thoughts on this. And the only guy you'll see wearing a Christmas hat in the middle of freaking June, Vegas Mac for you there. But, Ryan Clark brought this up yesterday when the news broke about how wrong place, wrong time for both parties, if you will. And it was a foregone conclusion, especially as we got through the draft. You could start to read the tea leaves that Rodgers was going to be in black and yellow, the most annoying song of all time. And I think there's a lot of people that think this. With Aaron Rodgers, he makes the Steelers just good enough to not draft a franchise quarterback. And I can see that argument. But I sit on the other side of this. I was more jacked for Steelers fans when they drafted Will Howard. And if you remember back to my quarterback, whatever you want to call it, I said going into last year that I thought Bo Nix was the best quarterback in the draft. Now, obviously, Jaden Daniels has a lot to say about that and had a way better year. I think over the long haul, Bo Nix is going to be a fantastic quarterback. I think Will Howard has that same opportunity. He's in a stable organization, and now Will Howard is going to get to learn from Mason Rudolph. I mean, let's, call a spade here, but from Aaron Rodgers. So I don't buy the fact that acquiring Aaron Rodgers could actually do damage to the Steelers in the long run. I think it's a great thing for the Steelers. I think it's a great thing for Rodgers. Now he's got DK Metcalf there. I'm gonna let the floor slide to you here because I know you've had some thoughts on this. Aaron Rodgers is a Steeler. As we sit here right now, you are a Steelers fan, so give me your broadcaster cap and your Steelers fan hat at the same time here.
So, this whole offseason, it's been nothing but complaining from the Steelers fan about this, that, and the other thing. What are we going to do at quarterback? We haven't found our quarterback. Every move has been kind of not rubber stamped. I mean, it's been a complaint. Metcalf was an overpay. They haven't signed Watt. Nothing has seemed to have gone right for the Steelers so far. So I look at it. Let's ask a couple of questions. Number one, do you think Aaron Rodgers, because here's the bottom line, is Aaron Rodgers the difference to getting the Steelers to the Super Bowl?
Absolutely,
that's the first question I have to ask myself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, is he better than what they had last year? Is he better than what they've got now?
That's an easy answer.
I think those are all, they're all yeses, right? I mean, you have to think that no matter what, I mean, I love Mason Rudolph, but there's a reason Mason Rudolph has been a backup his entire career, right? There's a reason that those guys fall into those slots. I mean, you are talking about a future Hall of Fame quarterback that, towards the end of the year really wasn't playing all that bad for the Jets. The Steelers do have some, okay? They do have some pieces there. Rodgers coming in, you're probably going to get another piece or two. There's a chance that they may go out and get Lazard. We know how much they like to work together. They've been in talks with getting another tight end. Pitts' name has been thrown around. So, there's going to be a couple of players that are going to want to come to the Steelers to play for or with Rodgers. Let's just be honest with that. And we've talked about this Steelers defense isn't getting any younger. I mean, how many more times are they going to have this core together to be able to make a run? This year and next year is probably those last years. So what is your best bet? Let's be honest. With Mason Rudolph, what are you looking at? Well, you're looking at another Mike Tomlin. Maybe I'm going to have a winning season. Okay. I kind of joked that, I really don't want Aaron Rodgers, but let's be honest. It's the best solution for this year. And maybe for next year, if you can get him to go one more year. But is it a long-term solution? No, but that's okay. But if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, what was the one complaint that everybody had at the end of the year? Well, we're just good enough to make the playoffs, and then we get railroaded. Okay, Well, now we're going to wait and see. Does this make it difference? Do we win more games now in the regular season and get a better seed and not have to get railroaded in the first round? And maybe kind of make our way through? I think this gives us a better chance. Is this a solution for the future? Obviously, it's not. But for this upcoming season, is this the way that the Steelers should go? Absolutely, 100%. That's both my Steelers fan and also my broadcaster thing. How can you not say that this is an upgrade over whatever they've had?
Yeah, and, right off the top, obviously Aaron Rodgers playing last year in the Jets, and that was a dysfunctional circus, but Rodgers himself wasn't consistent Aaron Rodgers. He is getting up there in age. He's not as mobile as he used to be. I think one guy that as soon as I saw the news yesterday, one guy that jumped right to the forefront of my mind, and you mentioned, he's had throwing sessions with DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is a man amongst boys out there. They have some familiarity together already. Obviously, it's a new look for the Steelers. No Najee Harris, no George Pickens. I don't necessarily know that or think that George Pickens not being there is that big of a deal. But the guy who I was like, oh my God, because I know how many times I played him on touchdown bets and everything else last year. The guy I think benefits the most from this and the most from this current version of Aaron Rodgers is Calvin Austin. He's going to be a guy that I think can be a safety valve for Rodgers. The Steelers' offensive line last year was not great, as you well know. You've got Austin, you've got Pat Freiermuth, and they're trying to get in. Jonnu Smith is another name that we've seen kind of bandied around there. And yes, Aaron Rodgers will attract more pieces to the puzzle. Gabe Davis just met with the Steelers, did not get a contract out of that meeting, but that doesn't mean that it's done. But Calvin Austin's a guy I think of right away that I'm like, oh my God, this guy with Aaron Rodgers, he's going to put up some numbers because Calvin Austin's got wheels, man. He has got wheels. They drafted Caleb Johnson, so a complete overhaul of the offense, which nobody in Pittsburgh is going to be complaining about, nor should you. That's what they needed to do. But I remember when we go back to the late part of last year in some of our Football Friday shows, and I threw this out to you and TJ, there was a scenario before the Steelers hit that really, really brutal part of their end of their schedule there, that you had really good odds on taking the Steelers to be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. That's the margin of error for them. And listen, yes, we know it's the Chiefs, it's the Bills. Then you've got a bunch of teams that I think now the Steelers can be a part of that conversation with the Ravens. What happens with the Bengals this year if they can keep Joe Burrow upright, or they'll have to win every game 75-74. But that next tier in the AFC is wide open for the taking. And I don't think you can not be excited in this position. I think if you're Will Howard, you might be the biggest benefactor of this entire scenario. It was a foregone conclusion. Now he's going to be in before minicamp. I think if you're a Steelers fan right now, you got to be absolutely stoked.
Yeah, and remember, I'm not a big fan of rookie quarterbacks anyway. And I mean, I know Jalen Daniels had a great year, but I'm still not I still don't like it. I mean, I think this is a great opportunity. You've got, I mean, and Will Howard, I mean, if something happens to Rodgers, you've got Mason Rudolph, so you've got that. I think that he's a great backup. He's a professional backup. It's exactly what he is, and it's exactly what every team needs. And then if for some reason the season goes awry, you can start to throw Howard in there, and it's not that situation where, well, we need you to do that. And so I think it's a great opportunity. I think the Steelers are going to be okay. I think this is going to be good for them. I mean, let's just be honest. This is the best quarterback they've had since Roethlisberger. Let's be honest. It really, truly is.
Yeah, I know the bar was set very low there. Let's look at a couple other quarterback scenarios that are going on real briefly here before we get into game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Again, follow us on all of our social channels at Mike Arana Show. Feel free to comment along if you're watching with us. We will be with you for the bulk of the summer during your lunchtime hours to get you through those rough parts of your workday there. But CJ Stroud didn't throw last week or whatever. They're all blending together right now. I think overblown. I don't really care if CJ Stroud is throwing in practices in May and June. A bigger issue that's come up quarterback wise, Anthony Richardson for the Colts, who was already in a battle here with Daniel Jones. It seems like there's some re-aggravation to that shoulder joint injury. And this is a guy like you go back to like high school, like end of high school through his entire college career at Florida, and then into the couple of years that he's been in the league now, he hasn't thrown a lot of passes. And you got Daniel Jones in there now. The Colts are another team that are in an interesting spot as far as the landscape of the AFC. I think there's way more concern to be had in Indy right now, because when Daniel Jones has been given an offensive line and weapons around him, he has been serviceable, slightly above average. The kid's talented. He's got legs. He can make plays happen. Kind of reminds me of the mobility of Aaron Rodgers that we knew, where he could create plays on the run. Anthony Richardson, I think, is in a dangerous spot here in Indy, and I'd be way more concerned in Indy than I would be in Houston. Obviously, in that division, you've got now Cam Ward in Tennessee. You've got Trevor Lawrence and whatever the hell's happening in Jacksonville. It's an interesting division there. But this Anthony Richardson news, I think for the Colts and the landscape of that division in general as a whole here, this is a way bigger thing for me if we can call something a big thing early into this part of the summer before we get into training camp and all that. And I mean, again, before you know it, the regular season's going to be here. What do you make of the South and the Richardson situation in general there, real quick, before we get into the Stanley Cup?
I mean, yeah, there was a little bit of sour taste with Richardson last year. A couple of his actions, not only on but off the field as well. I think there's quite the short leash there. I think that then the Colts also draft Riley Leonard.
I believe that's where he ended up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to. So, I mean, you have that as well there. And again, not that you want to put him in that spot, but, the Colts, it's an interesting thing because, again, they're one of those teams that at the beginning of the year, you just kind of, you're not real sure of. They usually always have a good little run. But I think with Jones there, I wouldn't be surprised if he's their starter. And Richardson's not with this team by the end of the year. I just think they're kind of soured on him.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that division, I mean, it appears on paper that it's going to be the Texans division for quite some time. I'm very interested to see what happens in Tennessee as they come up. We've got hockey going on off the ice and on the ice. We thought the coaching carousel had come to a stop yesterday and by the way, Boston Bruins fans, you don't get to claim Marco Sturm is yours. He came from San Jose, but Marco Sturm back home in Boston. A lot of people forget that trade. I mean, they don't forget who went to San Jose in that trade. They forget that Marco Sturm went to Boston in that trade. But was
it somebody good? Was it somebody
some
good?
guy who has his beard looks similar to mine. There's a lot more gray in his. He was actually at the Giants game the other day. Jumbo Joe, always Bay Area favorite. But just when we thought the carousel had stopped, it turns out that pulling your franchise goaltender in a must-win game in the Western Conference Finals is bound to get your ass bounced out the door. And Pete DeBoer is no longer the head coach of the Dallas Stars. So now there is another opening in the NHL. And we've seen all the other jobs have been filled, and now there's one, and there's a big one. Dallas has a lot of free agents. They don't have a whole lot of cap money. That whole Jake Ottinger situation, and I get it as a coach. We've all coached, not obviously at that level. We've coached at the college levels and stuff like that. So just the general concept of coaching here is the analogy that I'm going to use. But I get trying to wake your team up, but pulling your franchise goaltender to wake your team up is not the way to go about it. And we're never privy, and this is something that I always have to put in the proper context. We're never privy to all of the information. Tom Thibodeau last week in New York, which I can't say that I don't support that move because I've shared my thoughts on Thibodeau for a while now, but we're going to hear some more stories come out about the locker room and everything else. I think the way PDB kind of doubled back down on pulling Ottinger was there's no way in hell he's coming back here. Dallas is a very desirable job to have, and now it's open.
I mean, they beat Colorado. They beat Winnipeg. I mean, two of the teams that, most people thought that if you had to pick somebody from the West to go to the Stanley Cup Finals, it was either Colorado or probably Winnipeg. Like those were the two top picks. And he went through both of them. And then this is what happened. So yeah, again, just what I've read a little bit. I think it sounds like he might have lost the locker room a little bit before that. How and why, I don't know. Obviously, like you said, we're not in there, but that was probably the final blow for that locker room.
Yeah, and his quote, the reality is if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 or 7 games to Edmonton, and we gave up 2 goals on 2 shots in an elimination game. This is DeBoer on Ottinger. It was partly to spark our team and wake them up, knowing that the status quo had not been working. Mm-hmm. 2 days later, no one's a bigger fan of Jake Ottinger than me as a person or a goalie, and he goes on to say some other stuff. But, yeah, dude, no.
Right.
Well, we're talking about Jake freaking Ottinger here, arguably the best goalie in the Western Conference. Maybe, we can sit there and debate where he ranks amongst all that. Jake Ottinger is going to be a Dallas Star for a long damn time. Does Otter need to figure out how to beat Edmonton? Mm-hmm. Sure. Did PDB just toss him out there for the Wolves and the Sharks and whatnot, if you will? You knew I was getting the Sharks in here, but Dallas is going to be a very desirable job. Now, what does Jim Nill and Dallas do to replace him? Now, I joked with you guys when this news came out, and this just happened a few hours ago. PDB will get picked up by somebody, probably early in next year. The NHL, more than any sport, loves to fire coaches and replace them instantly within seasons with new head coaches, which is always one of the more baffling things that I see. And then he's probably going to lead that team to multiple conference finals in a row and then get canned. Pete DeBoer is like the NHL's version of Groundhog's Day. You had a great line in there as well that he's the Buck Showalter of the NHL. So we're going to keep an eye on that, because that's a job that I think the hire is extremely important because of where they sit in the Western Conference hierarchy. Obviously, Edmonton is the bar and looks like they're going to be the bar for quite some time. Speaking of the Oilers, game 2 tonight in Edmonton, that's going to be an absolute scene. We saw an epic game 1. And, when we started the show here today, I talked about like remembering epic NBA Finals game 1s. Then I decided to try and expand my tiny brain even farther and go, in the Stanley Cup Finals and the NBA Finals, have we ever seen 2 game 1s that were as impressive as these two? That's something that I don't think there's an answer for. I mean, if we get 7 games in both of these series of what we saw in game 1, holy cow, that's going to get us all the way through the month of June. Early thoughts from you going into game 2 tonight in Edmonton, where the Oilers have a 1-0 lead.
Yeah, that first game was a real head scratcher for me. Florida played, like I said, a great road game for the first half, and then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. I think they got it wrong. I think the first star in that game, most people had Draisaitl, the first star. For me, it was Skinner. It kept Edmonton in that game. In that second period, where Florida kind of was heavy on the ice, a lot of shots on goal, Skinner kept them in that game. And even though they were behind, it could have been worse. It could have easily been 4 or 5-1, but Skinner kept them in. For me, Skinner was the number 1 star in that game. And if Edmonton is going to continue to do what they've done, and what they've done is this: you can talk about McDavid and Draisaitl and whoever else you want on that team. This is a team that's now 3 games from winning a Stanley Cup for one reason and one letter: defense. That's it. Their defense has been stellar since game 3 against the Kings.
Yeah, and again, TJ will be back with us next week. I'll share his thoughts here so we can expound on this a little bit. He thinks tonight Florida gets up to a point where they're up like 3-1 and they put the afterburners on. And I think that's probably a general thought for most people here. I wouldn't be surprised if Edmonton takes a 2-0 lead in this series. And I think the interesting part as we go forward is, and this seems to happen every year in the Stanley Cup Final, and I don't understand why, but we've got game number 3 on Monday, and then we don't have game number 4 until Thursday. We've got a little bit of an extended break. I mean, if you're going to go on an extended break in the summertime, South Florida is not a bad place to do it. Obviously, way more enjoyable if you're not trying to win the Stanley freaking Cup, but the crowd we know is going to be electric tonight in there. I don't think this Edmonton team is scared one bit. And I also don't think this Florida team is going to be phased in any way, shape, or form by what happened the other night. Again, as I said this morning, I really felt like Florida, and if you look at the numbers, it kind of supports this theory. Florida did play a better 5-on-5 game than Edmonton did. The costly penalty in overtime led to their demise there at the end. But it felt, Mac, like, and you brought this up, like, that Florida looked like they ran out of gas. It really kind of felt like from about the 12-minute mark in the third period all the way through overtime, like Edmonton was skating 5-on-4 against Florida. That's what it felt like to me, which is something very uncharacteristic when you're watching the Panthers.
Yeah, I went back and looked at it a little bit, and there's one person that I want to bring up, and because of him, I think it's what shifted the entire Oilers' success, and that's Evander Kane. his physicalness in this game. Florida is a physical team. We know that. I thought, and I went back through my notes and I was looking, and I kept saying, even though Florida kind of has the momentum, I noticed that Edmonton was really being physical with Florida. And Evander Kane's the leader of that group. And what I thought is that Edmonton was out-physicaled Florida, especially from the middle of that game on. And that is the reason why it shifted. And so that's my key for game 2. Number 1, I think Skinner has to be, standing on his head once again. But can Edmonton be more physical than Florida in game 2? Because I think that was the difference. I think that's what turned it, is that, Edmonton was able to keep up with the physicalness of the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm glad you brought up Kane, because obviously, and TJ's, to his credit, has talked about the depth of the Oilers, the depth of the Oilers, the depth of the Oilers. Arvidsson, Ekholm being back, they were great the other night. But as I mentioned in this morning's video, I really did feel like Evander Kane was a difference maker. And I think a lot of the casuals that watch hockey at this time of year, you look at the stat sheet, you look at the points, you look at the goalie saves, and that's it. But in just Evander Kane was everywhere. And again, when you get to this part of the Stanley Cup Finals, we can sit here. You go down the point scorers for both of these teams and how many guys have put in goals and assists and everything through this postseason. And it's ridiculous when you go top to bottom on both of them. You're not here by accident. I mean, and with the general makeup of things in each respective conference right now, I don't think anybody would say it would be too out of left field crazy that we couldn't be watching a Warriors Cavaliers thing with the Panthers and Oilers here even next year. I mean, these two teams are that far and away, the way they're run, the way they're coached. I mean, Paul Maurice is as cool as it gets.
Amazing.
Nothing wavers him. And Knobloch has done the same thing for the Oilers here. I mean, it also helps in Knobloch's case when you have the two best players, for my money, in the world on the same damn team, in Smysaddle and Connor McKenzie.
Yeah, and here's the thing. You have to remember, Edmonton lost last year in 7 games, and everybody always knows, how many goals did Draisaitl score in that series?
Yep.
Right? And here's the thing. With Edmonton, the big stars played in game 1 like the big stars. McDavid and Draisaitl played, like you just said, the two best players in the league. That's what they need. I mean, when you have that going for you, I mean, this Edmonton team they've been scary for a couple of years. Now they've decided and figured out how to play defense. And now these guys are comfortable in this position. That's a scary proposition.
Yeah, I can't wait for tonight. Feel free to share your comments with us, your thoughts on game number 2. I laid it out this morning as far as how I think this game's going to go. I got the Panthers on the money line to even the series. Alexander Barkov to score a goal, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins for a point. Now, I will give you the option here. Is this game part of your best bets? And if it's not, go ahead and give me your thoughts and a prediction for tonight's game 2.
It is not part of my best bets. I'm going just strictly baseball. We'll get there in a second. I think Edmonton wins this game. I think Edmonton figured something out the second half of that game. I mean, they outshot, I was just looking at it. They outshot 24-8. They outshot Edmonton in the third period in overtime. I think Edmonton figured something out against Florida. I think Edmonton wins game number 2. Everything I've heard today, it's been Florida 4-2, 4-3, empty net goal. I think Edmonton rides this momentum and they take a 2-0 lead in this series. I'm going 4-1 Edmonton.
Oh, interesting stuff here. Lots of stuff going on next week. We will be with you only on Wednesday. It'll be all 3 of us. And then going forward from there, for the most part of the summer, it'll be Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays to help you get through your lunch period here. The only real time we're taking off is around 4th of July, and there will be no show next Thursday because of the United States Open at Oakmont. Easy for you to say, where
everybody will be under par.
Yeah. Everybody's
under the grass.
Everybody's going to be under the rough that makes my beard look like it's well coiffed right now. All right, let's get into some best bets for the evening. A lot of stuff going on in the sports world. We've got the Belmont Stakes tomorrow, the final leg of the Triple Crown that there won't be a Triple Crown for. And I got a guy. So I'm going to give you his horse and my horse in that race. But a lot of stuff going on. Mac, I'm going to get us started this time in traditional best bets form. So we've talked about a couple of these. So my best bet for the weekend is the Panthers on the money line tonight. Yannick Sinner to knock off Carlos Alcaraz in the French Open final and take the championship from Alcaraz. Sinner right now is down 3-2 in the third, but he's up 2-0.
Are you speaking French?
Yes, oui. Oui. I'm going to take Sinner with the Panthers, and I am going to take the Indiana Pacers to go up 2-0 in the NBA Finals. As far as tonight goes, I got a couple of combos here. I wanted goals and I wanted home runs. So I've got two for you. Number one, Evander Kane, who we just talked about, to score a goal in tonight's game, and Gavin Sheets of the Padres to hit a home run. My other one, Alexander Barkov to score a goal, and Jose Altuve to hit a home run tonight. So there you go. A lot of stuff for you degenerates. As far as the Belmont Stakes, before we get into yours, I'm going with Crudo, the 5-horse in this race. Todd Pletcher and my guy Johnny Velasquez. And Johnny Velasquez and I have a very interesting relationship. When I don't bet on Johnny V, he wins. When I bet on Johnny V, he doesn't. I think we're both due to just kind of mend the fences there. So I'm going with Crudo, the guy I know that knows more about horse racing than anybody I've ever met in my life. Our guy, I got a guy, is going with Hill Road in the Belmont Stakes. So there you go. I'm not recapping it for you. If you weren't listening, you can rewind. Vegas Mac, the man that best bets was created for. What do you have in the hopper for us tonight?
I don't. You threw me with the whole French thing.
Oui.
So I'm kind of shaking in my boots a little bit. I love the Chicago Cubs Detroit Tigers game tonight. Tariq Skubal on the mound. Take the Tigers any way you want them. Take Skubal strikeouts. I don't know. He's going. I'm going with 9 strikeouts tonight for Tariq Skubal there. I said it, 9 for the Tigers. That's a great game though tonight. Tigers and Cubs. I really wanted to go with Josh Bell as my best bet for today. He has 3 home runs in his career against Patrick Corbin, but he is not in the starting lineup for the Nationals. So I'm going to go, anyway, I'm going to go to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Those of the 7-run 9th inning Diamondbacks. They're playing against Cincinnati. And I'm going to give you 2 in this game. Two guys who are going to go deep. It's going to be Suarez for the D-backs and Mr. De La Cruz for the Reds. Both going to go
one of our favorite betting promotions, and they don't pay our bills, so I'm not going to name them, but they do a promotion that's out there tonight. Interesting matchups for said promotion. You've got the Diamondbacks and Reds at the Great American Bandbox. That's Eduardo Rodriguez and Nick Lodolo in that one. And then you've got the New York Mets at Coors Canaveral. Senzatella 1-10, 7.14 ERA for the Rocks, who are now 12-50. Perfectly online for my prediction. I cannot wait till 4th of July. Rockies and White Sox. Nothing says America like watching those two friggin' teams. And Kodai Senga on the bump for the Mets. So if you're looking for homers tonight, that's a good place to start. Coors Canaveral, the Great American Bandbox. So again, to recap, TJ will be back with us next Wednesday. Our only show next week, unless something else dramatic happens, will be Wednesday. Right, same time, 11:30 on the West Coast, 2:30 on the East Coast. And then we'll be with you the entire summer through your lunchtime to help you get through it. Dollar Dingers is coming back. We've got so much going on. I think we're in line, as we've talked about today, for 2 incredible championship series in the NBA and the NHL. Let's hope they continue to deliver. So for everybody behind the scenes, Thank you, as always. We couldn't do this without you. For everybody that followed along, thank you. Tag a friend, tell a friend. For Vegas Mac, for TJ, I'm Mike. We'll talk to you on Wednesday.